How's it going, people? Sam here, and again, another RSMax, and this time on a Friday. And very similar to last time, we're going to carry on where we left off, which is still doing this max challenge. And I'm sure some of you with eagle eyes can already see that in this background footage, I'm actually already 98 Hunter. Guess you know what this video is about then? So finally, after a very long time, I actually managed to finally end my hunting career. I am now 99 Hunter. Oh yes. Managed to get 99 Hunter, say 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, something like that. Not all that long ago, and I've pretty much blitzed the entirety of these last two levels just today. So I've gained about 2.2 mil hunting XP. And now it's actually fully complete, and I can move on. So the only things that's left now is 97 Slayer and 96 Summoning. So, thanks to the last video, quite a few of you have actually left me some tips for Slayer, and I really do appreciate it. Thanks very much. Hopefully, I'll be able to hit my 1 mil a day Slayer mark, and if I manage to actually do it, then it could very well be by Sunday I could potentially be maxed. Which means I will, if Divination comes out next week, I'll have max cape for about a day and a half. So yeah, I get a day and a half of max cape, yay. Ah, well, can't complain, can you? Let's be honest. Max is max, son. But I will gain that 5 mil off Resi, so yeah, in your face, Res. So, that said, 9900 is now done and dusted. Only 2 more skills left before I finally manage to max. I'm so happy hunting is over. You've no idea. That last stretch, I wouldn't be able to do anymore. Put it that way. I literally... Nah, just no. No, no, no. I'm glad I'm not 900. I will never touch it again. Ever. Oh, tell a lie. I got it on my noob. Oh my god. Oh no. Got level 100 on my noob. Never. Oh well, never mind. I can cry about that next time. Either way, what is this video about? Well, I'm not sure if you're all aware, but on the 13th, when Death of Chivalry came out, there was an almighty patch note of Doom. It is absolutely massive. I mean, ridiculously so. So, quite literally, for the rest of this video is going to be patch note, patch note, patch note, patch note, patch note. It's monstrous. Fair play. There's absolutely loads of little bug fixes. So, let's get into it then, shall we? Well, starting off, we have graphical glitches, starting with objects. Various offhand weapons have had their imagery icons changed to make them visually distinct from the main hand version. The imagery model for Brass Hand Harry's mark has been fixed. The black full helm in the King's Ransom quest now displays correctly. The imagery icon for the mithril pickaxe is now consistent with other pickaxes. Bandos and leather gloves no longer share the same imagery model. Buckets of water and milk no longer share the same appearance in the HTML5 client. Moving on to graphical glitches with players. The circus shirt no longer stretches when performing emotes. The subjugation hood no longer stretches on female characters. The Highwayman mask no longer causes issues with premium hairstyles. Machetes and offhand weapons no longer appear on the same side of the player. The rat pole will now be held correctly in combat. Guthan's plate body no longer clips on male characters. The relic helm Saradomin no longer stretches when performing certain actions. Players can no longer sheath their equipment to interrupt the bonfire animation. The pirate shirt will no longer clip the player's arms. The barred bow will now successfully play the drawback animation. The minor graphical glitch for the rope climb animation in Cletia has been fixed. The 5th heraldic rune kite shield will no longer stretch. Sheathed pickaxes no longer appear in 2 places when mining in the lava flow mine. White plate legs no longer stretching on female players while fishing. The untrimmed dungeoneering cape icon is no longer distorted. The changing room animation has been updated. Ardone and clan cloaks now appear correctly when equipped. The veteran Behemoth cosmetic override no longer clips through the cape for female characters. Veteran Colossus armor no longer stretches when performing emotes. Hats stored with the Dragon Keepsake key no longer clip through the hair. The Sinkhole Home teleport animation has returned to what it was intended to be. Unsheathed weapons are now hidden during the Round of Applause emote. Particles for player armor will no longer appear when using Slayer Mask transform actions. Herald capes now recolor correctly. A reach animation has been added when getting a chest from an odd tree. Moving on to graphical NPC glitches. Told you there's a lot. Ethereal Perceptive now holds the correct hatchet. Gaius now wears the updated Iron Chain body. Captain Syad, Gaslaw the Elder, Clivet and students no longer have patchy skin colours. Shanty guards are no longer missing parts of their face. The schoolgirl in Varrock Museum now has a matching chat head and model. Drainer jail guards no longer have missing polygons around their necks and now use updated steel maces. Lumberjack Leif now wields an updated steel hatchet. Syrisus now uses updated animations. Juno now plays the correct animation if a player exits the cave immediately after ending. The knockback animation whilst fighting the giant rock in My Arm's Big Adventure has been updated. Anna's chat head is no longer stretching outside of the chat head window. Pia the Seer and Merkylie's air staff models have been updated. Tribesmen now have mouths again. The trial announcer is no longer floating in the HTML5 beta. Helena and Victor's chat heads are no longer distorted. Fire Cape Zor's no longer has a detached head. Diseased Kepid attack animations now appear correctly. Shades and Sinkholes now have attack animations. Major Miri Rancor's head no longer clips into the camera during one of the tutorial cutscenes. A troll in the tutorial cutscene is no longer floating in HTML5 beta. Demon Fireball animations are now in sync with the player's defend animation. The guard dogs around Lumbridge now play the correct animations. So moving on to graphical environmental glitches. Bloom once again works correctly in the Java client. Several areas above ground level have had blocking added to stop players walking into the air. A loose curtain someone had left lying around in Faldor has been cleaned up. The stepping stones at the southeastern part of Karamja have returned. The pads in the pressure pen ferret room in Dungeoneering now appear the correct colour when Bloom is enabled. Magic trees no longer appear stretched in the Lumbridge tree farming patch. Shadows on Jadingo Lair fire pits have been removed from the HTML5 client. The docks on Luna Isle no longer appear to float. The ivy north of Varrock Palace is visible once again. The dragon armor in My Arm's Big Adventure cutscene has been updated. Players are no longer able to float above ground level in the Grand Exchange. Doors no longer open the wrong way in Varrock. Leaving the Jadingo Lair no longer makes the screen white. A house in Varrock now correctly hides the roof with the remove roof setting turned on. The Warriors Guild walls once again appear in the Berthorpe Knighthood cutscene. The bloom in Zenaris has been restored. Players can no longer walk through the pillars in West Varrock. All of the cutscenes in the tutorial now use the updated buildings model launched with RS3. A height mapping issue near Sears Village has been fixed. Bloom no longer causes the Dreamland in Lunar Diplomacy to appear black and white. Bloom no longer causes the Jigig basement to appear black and white. Graphical fixes have been made to the Uglug pools. Players can no longer walk into the Heroes Guild staircase on the first floor. Several tiles that force walked players where larger trees used to be should no longer do so. The Champions Guild has had the glass reinstalled into the windows. The lava below Abatol is no longer graphically distorted. The Grand Exchange is no longer excessively bright in DirectX. Players are no longer able to walk on water in Karamja. Jesus! Players no longer float in certain parts of the Jewel Arena. The burning building in Berthorpe now appears correctly. A graphical glitch in the Battle of Lumbridge has been fixed. The Zamrock base spawn point has been raised slightly to stop clipping with the ground. The deposit box in Polnivnich is now visible again. Players can now exit the Dominion Tower using the chain. A small section of wall in Varrock has been tweaked to stop it clipping. The anvil room in Varrock no longer displays the ground as blue when panning the camera around. The missing Lumbridge pigpen has returned. A missing texture outside the Cathixian ruins used in the World Wakes has been fixed. Trees are no longer half sunk into the ground in farming tree patches. The Variant Museum display case 19 has been replaced. In the HTML5 client, clan vexilliums no longer fly when placed on a stand in the clan camp. Ooh! Oh my god, next one's huge. Interfaces, graphical wise. Interfaces for the photo booth, explorers, ring, alchemy, and price tracker, emotes, trading, and the dungeoneering party, floor, and complexity settings have all been updated. The new quest tutorial pop-up has been updated. The quick track tutorial now uses images of the new interface. Using one object on another has been reversed to make the functionality act the same as pre-RS3. This is to fix issues with strange rocks on a statue, collection bag, fish on a tackle box, and so on. The combat overlay no longer gets confused when using AoE attacks. A bug where chat wasn't appearing above players' heads has been fixed. Private messages now appear in the lobby consistently. Summoning boosts no longer cause the requirement for pouches to display incorrectly on the Make X interface. Players should find their PvP opponents' buffs and debuffs are no longer cut in half under the combat info bar. The Grand Exchange information now references accuracy rather than hit bonus. Abilities on the action bar no longer remain highlighted when deselected. Players can once again move the caret in the chat box to edit text without having to delete it. I don't know. The crossbow bolt pouch no longer closes all the other interfaces when opened. An issue that caused some items to have the incorrect options in the worn equipment interface has been fixed. Removed an extra remove option from auras on the worn equipment interface, thank fuck for that. Cancelling a bug report no longer causes the correct position to act incorrectly. The tooltip to leave clan and guest clan chat channels has been corrected. Text no longer appears in the chat box when searching for items in the Grand Exchange. Interface tabs and their respective interfaces are no longer mismatched when exiting player-owned ports. The interface no longer disappears when opening the world map whilst interacting with objects. Players can now clear markers by right-clicking on them in the world map. The ability to add a player to your friend or ignore list via right-click options is now returned. All existing chat will now also be changed when players change their text color customizations. The keybinds for previous action bar and next action bar now function correctly. Heal, pray, and summon icons are now unable to be moved when your action bar is locked. Tooltips on the player-owned ports no longer get stuck and remain on screen. The cursor displayed when mousing over interfaces now works correctly. The bank tab that was currently selected is now all visible. The follower details interface no longer opens in the chat window in the old school preset. The world map can now be closed via a keybind. Chat box can now be moved and resized in the God Statues D&D as well as in cutscenes, edit mode, world map, and when transmogrified. Some minor graphical changes have been made to the UI when locked so that arrow keys don't appear unnecessarily and interfaces cannot connect more smoothly. The combat overlay will no longer appear on Muncher in the death tutorial. Notes no longer break when you drag one outside of the interface. Pressing the keybind to open the home teleport interface will now also close it. The choose left click option familiar interface now appears transparent. The keybinds to select quick chat phrases now works correctly. Leaving a conversation with an NPC mid-dialogue no longer causes keybinds to remain disabled. Players will now see a confirmation box before resetting all of their keybinds. Prayer abilities window will no longer switch between curses and prayers constantly. Lock-in interface customization no longer causes some interfaces to resize incorrectly. The skill category on the bug report interface now successfully allows the player to continue. The low, med and high buttons now highlight correctly in the graphical options of the HTML5 client. The interfaces no longer resize and move when opening and closing a world map. Adjusting transparency on the interfaces no longer changes players' music settings. Quick inventory now updates when potions are used, similar to when using food. Mouse sensitivity settings will remain saved when a player logs back into the game. The action bar will now remember its last place location on the game screen. The Y, N and escape keys will now work as expected to confirm destroy in the NPC chat interfaces. The skill total and level tooltips no longer stay present on other interfaces when switching between them. Private chat color customization now remembers the color that players have selected. The XP tracker now remembers its displayed state between logins. The minigame HUD now remains in place after resizing the game window. The quick chat shortcut for repeat the last thing you said has been changed to F12. The friends chat divider position no longer resets on logout. Spam clicking the social interface no longer causes the high score tab to break. Oh my god, so many interface updates. It's not over yet, people. You're not that lucky. Next up is skills and minigames. The damage dealt in the creature graveyard of the mage training arena has been corrected. The hidden urns in Pyramid Plunder can no longer be walked through. Fight Cauldron NPCs will now spawn consistently. The rewards eligibility warning message in the Castle Walls lobby no longer appears and disappears early. The camera no longer acts bizarrely at the end of Dominion Tower fly-through cutscene. The inventory interface is now available again in between Fish Flinger games. The defense ability tabs now what? The defensive ability tab no longer becomes locked when entering the Crucible. Well, that's a spelling mistake right there. Good white. Barrows Brothers heads no longer appear squished when prey is drained from the Barrows area effect. Typing in the chat box while the Squeal of Fortune interface is open will no longer perform undesired actions on the Squeal of Fortune. Squeal of Fortune floating interface will no longer appear over the top of Squeal of Fortune. An issue with the new interface system locking up when using the Penance Cannon in Barbarian Assault has been fixed. Players can now offer bacon in temple tracking. Right then, carrying. We still have distractions and diversions. A bug where the daily reset for Wilderness Warbands didn't trigger has been fixed. A bug where players could not complete a certain sinkhole map due to mobs not spawning correctly in certain rooms has been fixed. Treasure trail locations that were buried by Sarah Domin's camp and god statue have been relocated. 2 treasure trails linked to the drawers in Berthorpe can now be completed properly. Players can now take off hand weapons into the Ghoul Champions Challenge. The click area on the Defend the Gatehouse section of the tutorial has been made smaller. Players are now able to use the magnifying glass on Gamden during HIM vs Dorgishan court case. The icon for Goblin Raids has been corrected. Yep, moving on to the Battle of Lumbridge. Maximum tier multiplier is now correctly shown as ×4 in free-to-play worlds. Players now have the option to turn off receiving tiers outside the battlefield via the Battle of Lumbridge interface tab. Players can now split their votes correctly when assigning multiple votes at once. It is no longer possible to buy multiple copies of reward armors by switching sides and switching back. Sarah Domin's animation now looks better from a distance. An issue with some force walk tiles near Sarah Domin and Zamrock camp has been fixed. Several quick chat options have been added to the Battle of Lumbridge. Players can now take part in the Duke's Dilemma during the Lost Tribe. The Saradorin Glory emotes now have sound attached to them. Players will now find their daily multiplier will reset even if they are still carrying divine tears from previous days. Fish in the Battle of Lumbridge instances now work correctly. Several NPCs in the Battle of Lumbridge no longer spawn inside walls. Karamia now has the chat option to ask for directions every time a player talks to her. Players are no longer attacked by God War's dungeon minions if they're wearing an item obtained in the Battle of Lumbridge. Oh boy. Well then, carrying on. Quests, challenges and achievement updates. The Skill Advanced Guide no longer states you have all the requirements for smoking kills without the required combat level. The Spirit of Faith dialogue no longer closes during the Demon Slayer quest. Fixed an out-of-date reference to Guthic's Rest T in One Small Favour quest. Players are now shown to use a hammer when fixing a wall in a Void Dance. Players can now use the elements of Ivan's life with the Doll of Ivan to combine them in Underground Pass. Several cutscenes now have names and examines hidden when played. General Khazad no longer gets bored with attacking the player in the Fight Arena quest. The camera is no longer behind a wall during a cutscene and smoking kills. What's Mine is Yours cutscene no longer prevents the player from progressing further in the quest. Gertrude Select a Cat interface now works correctly. Free-to-play players can no longer start the Priest in Peril. The camera no longer shakes continuously during a section of Clockwork Syringe. A minor camera issue during Diamond in the Rough has been fixed. Players who logged into RS3 from a long hiatus can once again enter Mauritania. What? Seriously, that happened? A camera issue during Cabin Fever has been fixed. Players will now receive the correct type of pick pouches from Eli. An animation and sound effect have been added to the pick machine when infusing pouches. Fermenting vat in Keldgrim no longer disappears when brewing pig swill. The Lumbridge/Drainer achievement progress is now accurate. The type of ranging potion needed for the Seer's Village task, Plenty Potion NTR, has been clarified. Players are now able to complete the task Hammer the Anvil in the tutorial. The camera no longer sits inside a house wall during the battle with the anvil. Hint arrows now consistently disappear after the Hammering the Anvil task, and the skills tasks can be completed. Moving on to combat. NPCs that use overhead prayer / curses icons have now been reworked. The inoculation brace now protects players from 500 poison damage before crumbling to nothing. The rapid fire ability now fires the correct number of shots. The dazing shot ability now applies the correct debuff. Sighted magic and maple shield bows now convert to coins when dropped on death in the wilderness. The skeletons in the Divine Skinweaver boss room now display 100% life points when spawned. Strike worms no longer show 2 combat overlays. The target icon will now disappear if a player tries to attack an NPC when they do not have the right amount of ammo or runes. The combat overlay on deadly red spiders no longer obscures the hit splats. The damage output for the Chain, Dragon Breath, Detonate and Tsunami abilities has been corrected. Audio wise, the shuffle and skip buttons in the music player now work properly. Applying weapon poison now has the correct sound effect. Using the bloom spell on any weapon no longer causes an audio loop. The music track Darkness now appears in the correct place. Ancestral Wisdom now plays correctly. Sith Raid Requiem track will now continue playing past the first few seconds. Some of the audio in Dungeoneering party interface has been changed. Audio settings in the lobby now work properly. The song unlock locations for the town and garden have been swapped. When listening to a music box, the song can now be heard again. Holy Sithra emote can no longer be heard by other players. Grammar and spelling. Typo when a player has been supplied with body armor for a god emissary has been fixed. Tim Fracker's grammar has been corrected after completing Typo Wani Trio. A typo when players try to give a camel a receipt to a gang member during the feud is corrected. Some capitalization errors in the social interface have been fixed. Spelling mistake in dialogue with the minigame has been fixed. Capitalization error on the dollar vibe has been fixed. Shards of Armadillo now use the correct grammar. Typo in Eli's dialogue has been fixed. Mod Crow's clone now has a full stop after its examine information. The Beneath the House music track has been corrected to follow suit with the rest. Typo in Renard's dialogue of the curses are has been fixed. Spelling mistake in the message given when receiving a title from Gathering Tears has been fixed. A typo on the High School's interface has been fixed. War Priest of Zamarok / Saradomin and Greaves are now spelled properly. Lucky Dragon Claws are now singular. A typo on the not enough space for Cactus Spine's message has been fixed. And we're coming closer to the end, although there's still quite a massive chunk left. We now have the other Miscellaneous updates. So there's a little bit of everything here. The camera now zooms out further when fighting the Queen Black Dragon. About time. Several small changes and tweaks have been made to streamline the account creation process. Ascension bolts can now be stored in a bolt pouch. Pets in Freeworld will no longer prevent players from accessing some game content. Offhand Warhammers will now override offhand maces in a Dragon Keepsake box. Weapons stored in a Dragon Keepsake box with unique projectile animations now work properly. Used Tectonic Armor can now be added to the Dragon Keepsake box. The Ornate Katana now works correctly when in a Dragon Keepsake box. Objects are now stored in Dragon Keepsake boxes more consistently. What do you mean you use a Dragon Keepsake box and they don't get stored? I mean, that's kind of shit. It does the opposite of what it tells you it does. Either way, the Duelist and Wildstalker helms can now be reclaimed correctly when in a Dragon Keepsake box. Dragon's Medallion can now be reclaimed if placed in a Dragon Keepsake. All loyalty outfits can be reclaimed, Dragon Keepsake. Doctor's Gown, Raider Chain Body, Dragon Keepsake. The Drainer Jail Guards have been issued new patrol routes in order to avoid tree-related accidents. The Grand Exchange no longer gives incorrect information regarding which bolts and certain crossbows can fire. Several click zone sizes in the tutorial have been fixed. Activating a prayer in the middle of a home teleport will now cancel the teleport. Magic Essence potions can no longer be created with the assist system. The Spirit Pack Pig's right click option now states withdraw instead of store. Players can no longer view other players' inventories outside of Daemonheim. Wow, you could do that, that's awesome. Additional checks have been added to the Slayer masks to ensure that cannons cannot be taken into the Chaos Tunnels. Some dialogue with Ariana and that conflicted with the Battle of Lumbridge has been corrected. Build ticks and clan citadels will now occur more consistently in certain locations. The wardrobe interface no longer offers to open the store if the Sword of Edict's customization is unlocked. Quick Bow is no longer listed as a members only in the Range Skill Advanced Guide. Tectonic Armor now appears in the Runecrafting Skill Advanced Guide. Players can now store items on the Pig Beast of Burdens by using them on the pig. Players may no longer cook barley on an open fire. Players with a pet or familiar out are now prevented from going downstairs in Far Out Museum. Lame. After declining a Slayer challenge, players can now force a Slayer task using their Slayer masks. Awesome. Gotta be trying that out. The Aegis Tapestry is now available in the Clan Citadel. Correct tier is now displayed on the elaborate magic pillar in the Clan Citadel. World map now acts properly in Clan Citadel. Players will now receive a confirmation warning before a clan name change is processed. Lobby now displays the correct amount of days before email validation becomes mandatory. Players can no longer teleport to the Smoky Well using the Mask of Dust without making progress in Desert Treasure. The lock zoom setting now prevents using page up, page down to zoom. Players can now complete the Profound Decorative Armor Trimmed Completionist Cape requirement if their helmet is overridden. Several titles in German now appear correctly as a prefix or suffix. In Dungeoneering, autocast selection is now retained on death and when transitioning from one dungeon to the next. That's taken way too long to happen, let's be honest. Players can now see the full message displayed on the Dungeoneering exit confirmation screen. The right-click request assist option on players now disappears with the option toggle off. The bind setup interface now shuts properly in Dungeoneering. All of the text now fits in the dialogue title bar when the player is offered to join other players for the Virago fight. Players that have not completed Bringing Home the Bacon can no longer participate in co-op Slayer assignments for pigs. Lame. Fix some camera issues while fighting Uklaga the Thunderous. The camera transition is now much smoother when passing through the middle of the abyss. Further clarification has been added to the Dominion Tower tooltip on the seasonal high scores. Prismatic lamps now display as kept on death correctly. The Take Bob option has been returned for Gatherer Familiars. An issue with odd camera angle when using shortcut near Calphite King's lair has been fixed. Camera controls and chat scaling now work with the player moderator room. Camera will no longer zoom in when completing the Wilderness Agility. Tablets in the player-owned house can no longer be made without the required runes. Camera movement can be smoothed out when the magic habit right. Spam click insert potions can no longer meet normal fishing speed to increase. There we go. Oh my god. Yeah. That's not a small amount at all. That's like 20 minutes worth of me chanting updates. Yeah. In case you're curious on any of those, if you missed them or just completely and utterly zoned out and didn't even bother to watch the video, I don't blame you, let's be honest. Listening to that is gotta be annoying. So yeah, if you want this, if you just go to the RuneScape website, go to the forums, go to recent game updates, and you'll find it under patch notes -13th/08/2013. So you can go ahead and have a little gander yourself and see what you think, see if you find things. And that's pretty much it. There's not many other updates. Oh, come to think of it, Solomon's Store. That's going to be, well, now, this second, pretty much. You just had a system update. It's basically taking out the loyalty shop in Solomon's Store, and they'll be down for a couple of days, and then they'll be put back up under the new system where they'll be kind of combined together. So you can now get more stuff with the loyalty points, and vice versa with Solomon's Store coins or whatever the heck they're called, them too. So yeah, that's going to be snorted. So there we go. And on screen right now, you're watching me pick up my wonderful prize. After I finally got 99 Hunter, I ended up beating Dave to 99. So I'm taking my wins. And next one this is going to be happening to is Resi. So yeah, best be preparing that 5 mil, son, because I'm apparently a day ahead of schedule with Hunter. Game on. I'm definitely going to be winning this dollar. I want it. I'm going to take it. I will catch you all later. Have a good one. Ah.